Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. With me today is definitely the winner of the Best Dressed Award in the entire insurance industry, President and CEO of Klinger Insurance Group, Mr. Robert Klinger. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brad. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I am. I'm happy we are able to get this in. As we were just kind of talking off air a little bit, I really appreciated your presentation at Innovation this year. It just hit me right with something that I am working on right now, which is a perpetuation plan. So we're looking forward to getting into that today. But why don't you give us a little bit of a background of Bob Klinger and how you found your way into the insurance space?
Well, I found my way into the insurance space by accident. I've been in business about 30 years. We have three divisions: a personal lines division, commercial, employee benefits, and then we have a real estate company, and then we have a premium finance company as well. So we've really diversed over the years there. We do business in about 23 states, and we're doing business internationally now as well.
Wow, really? Wow. Okay. So talk a little bit about that's a lot going on. Talk a little bit about your team and let's go back to how you started, how you grew your business, and then maybe expanded into real estate or premium finance.
Well, when I came out of the military, I started out with a company called Mass Mutual, and I was a life agent, and that really gave me my ground point because I um, had two mentors that were older gentlemen that were top of the table MDRT people that really guided me and really were great mentors throughout the years. And within my first 6 months, I paid out two death claims, and that really put into perspective what you're
Wow.
selling. You know, it's different when you have a car accident. It's one thing, but when you have someone that passed away and you have to deliver that promise, that check at the
Wow.
end of the day, you can't replace the life of a loved one, but you're keeping them in the same financial situation, hopefully, and that hit home. Within my first year with Mass Mutual, I was the number one agent in the country. I sold
Hmm.
over 523 lives that year.
Wow.
And then a small little company called Area Insurance heard about me and then came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to come sell for one of our agencies in Maryland, and like you to train them on that because they want to really sell life insurance. They want to get in the life business big time." So I relocated from Erie, Pennsylvania to Maryland and start working with this agency. Worked with them a little over a year and a half, but I ended up leaving because our values weren't aligned.
Hmm.
I was more about the people, the experience, and this guy was more about just selling and making money and not really caring about clients. And
Yeah.
so that wasn't about. So I went on my own at that point.
So that's when you started Klinger Insurance Group.
That's right.
So
We first started out doing life employee benefits and then switched to commercial insurance because that was a natural fill because we had the businesses under group health.
Hmm.
And so we went right into niches right from the day one. We started out with a dry cleaning program, started in Maryland, and we took it to about 23 states. We wrote about 10 million in revenue with the dry cleaning program
Wow.
nationwide.
Wow.
I took it to a whole new level because I spoke in Korea to the international fabricator industry. I sat on the boards of the Dry Cleaners Association. So I was very entrenched in what they were doing. I understood their products. I actually went to school for dry cleaning. So I knew
Okay.
everything about the equipment, the pain points, the things they're going through. And that helped launch me. And we wrote probably about 3,600 dry cleaners. Um, and we were very, very strong in the dry cleaning industry. Now it's kind of dipped because of the economy and people aren't wearing suits and the clothes and the fabrics they changed. So that was our first niche program was dry cleaning, and we realized at the time there were over 60% of the dry cleaners were Korean speaking. So naturally we had to get and train people Korean that can help interpret so that we can hit that market. After the dry cleaning market, we went into the restaurant industry. And again, we niched right down to there.
Hmm.
We went family style, we went buffet, we went fast food, we went quick serve, and then we micro niched into, okay, Chinese restaurants, Spanish restaurants, Thai restaurants, Indian restaurants. Because once we did that, we could build a name real quick within
Yeah.
those communities very quick. And so we went to the restaurants, but then we went, okay, who do they do business with? I want their seafood distributor. I want their the guy that sells the POS systems. I want the guy that does the architect of them. I want the guy that does the credit card processing. And so we just micro niched on. Everywhere they wrote a check, we went after them as clients as well.
And so what did that look like as far as carrier representation? Because you chose
With the dry cleaners, I tell you what, I was very smart. When I got into a niche, I had 3 carriers that are willing to write the business.
Yeah.
And thank God I did that, because it was, I think, 1999. Fireman's Fund was our lead program for dry cleaners. And there were 2 other agents that were writing it, and they kind of screwed up the market and drew the loss ratios up pretty high. So Fireman's Fund decided to cancel the whole dry cleaning book and fade out of dry cleaning. And I'll never forget when I got the call, I had to move this business within a fair amount of time. And so I moved it over, and I had Hartford, and I had a company called Zork at the time, and I moved it there. And it was funny, Mike LaRocco at the time, which was the CEO of Fireman's Fund, called me back 6 months later and says, "Hey, Bob, what can I do to get all that business back?"
Wow.
Because of the agreements of this, we had to terminate everybody at the program, but we'd like to get it back. And I said, "Mike, that ship has sailed. We've moved that business on." And so we ran with Zork at the time, which was a Maryland casualty, and they went well for a while, but then they blew up too down the road. They got into other things they shouldn't have got into, and then they kind of went north, or maybe south, I should say. And so then we went to Hartford. So I would suggest, if you're writing a niche, you need to have at least 3 companies that are viable that can go after that and want it.
So how did you target these dry cleaners?
Well,
essentially nationwide.
I pretty much did it like I did in the military. You understand people, culture, you understand the business. You start doing some business surveys, finding out, okay, who they with, what carrier, what agency writes them. Okay, why did that agency get that business? What is that agency's strengths? What is their weaknesses? What is their vulnerabilities? How are they at service? How are they at claim? And then I took all those things there, and I said, we must be better than them. We got to do everything they're doing, and then to the next degree. And then how do we add value? And how do we take it from a transaction to a relationship to building value to being like on their mini board, I would say. And they'd say, look, do you have a board? And they'd say, no, I'm just a small retail dry cleaner. I don't have a board. I said, yes, you do. You have an attorney, right? Yeah. I have a CPA. Yeah. Now you have an insurance professional. Let's help you be successful. And then that's what we did. And we became, a lot of our conversations weren't even about insurance. It was about other things they needed that they wanted me to help them with, or to introduce them to somebody else. And that's how we were able to grow. And then we were speaking at the trade shows. We'd go to all the national conventions we'd set up, and then I'd be on stage speaking about insurance or various products. And it was, give, and eventually you'll get.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you do much, say, cold calling or door knocking?
We did a lot of door knocking back in the day. I tell you what, I put a lot of miles on my shoes. We did a lot of walk-ins because it was easier, because if you're in a dry cleaner, they don't answer the phones much. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
They're in the business. It's a mom and pop business, unless it's got some like 15, 20 or 25. And so you have to go out and be in front of them. You have to go where they go. And so we do a lot of that. When they would have their meetings, we would buy lunches or dinners or things like that. And then we would speak in front of them when they had their trade shows. So any which way I could get in front of them, but walking in was the best way.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And then when you pivoted to the specialty restaurant, did you have to search for new markets for that?
We did look at other markets. Again, when we did our analysis of finding out, we went through about 50 different, restaurants and said, okay, who are you with? And somewhere along the way, we got a correlation of these are the top 4 carriers that are writing business in that area, that state, that location. And so then we went after those markets there. But then we looked at, okay, what are the strengths and weaknesses of those carriers? Okay. And we would drill down and we'd say, okay, what coverages does a restaurant need, and what coverages do they have, and which coverages don't they have? So then we would work that angle. And then we would go to carriers and say, look, we can write this much business, but we need to make sure this coverage, this language is in this policy.
How did you build out your team from that? Because once you started to grow, and you started to grow in that niche, and at some point you just discovered I need some help with this? Were you doing all the selling, or did you have other producers that were helping
You
you
know, at first
in
it
the
was
industry?
me. It was
Yeah,
me selling, and then it was my wife selling, and then we did bring on some producers later.
yeah,
Okay, but yet naturally, when you hit the first 100, it's one thing. When you hit the first 1,000, it changes things pretty rapidly for service and scale wise.
yeah,
And so the greatest thing when you have a niche is it's very easy to train people because they're learning the same thing. They know how to quote it. They know where the claims happen, and so it's a lot easier than if they're doing a shotgun approach where you have a roofer come one day, a cement guy coming in.
yeah,
It's different exposures, different risks, and so it was
yeah,
very easy for them to become the foremost and very knowledgeable about the product. I mean, they knew and understood the product. They understood the competition. They understood the competition's
yeah,
strengths, weaknesses, the care vulnerabilities, and everything else. And then that brought value to the client.
yeah. And your point, so much easier to train. My goodness.
Sure.
Yeah. At what point did you start to evolve into the personal insurance side?
It was funny. We didn't do personal lines until I think it was like 2008,
Okay.
2009. I was getting asked all the time, but because we were writing so much life insurance and health insurance
Mhm.
and commercial insurance, I didn't see a value of personal at the time.
Yeah.
But what happened was I got hit with an uppercut when Obamacare came into being, and he changed the way commissions were on the group health side. I mean, I went from 20% to 15 to 10 to like $7 per applicant. I couldn't make money in health insurance anymore. And it
Right.
was a servicing nightmare. So a part of the book was sold, the other part I still have, but I need to pivot. So I need to make up that income. So we got into the personal lines market at that point.
Yeah. And so you didn't have much background in that. So did you strictly hire that out? I mean,
I
hire
mean,
people who are
I
involved?
mean, personalized is pretty easy. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean,
Yeah.
it's got even easier now more than ever. But I mean, um, we started doing it initially, and then I started hiring people to be able to do that. And again, because I just couldn't hire anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, because my clients were Chinese, they were Korean, they were Spanish, and then some of them, a lot of them were first generation. So I need to hire people that spoke those languages. And so
Yeah.
that was a very big part of that. And that was a learning lesson too, because if you're getting in a niche and there's a language barrier involved in that niche, you can't rely on that one producer or that one account manager because they'll take advantage of you at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And if they leave you, what are you going to do? They're going to
Yeah.
try to move that book away, or the clients are going to be afraid and they're going to leave you. So you have to have a redundancy in your staff that speak those languages as well, because they may be out sick, they may be on vacation, or they may leave. Whatever the situation is, you have to have redundancy throughout.
Yeah. Let's tell me about the makeup of your team. How many team members do you have? And
Right now, we're about 24.
okay.
You know,
Okay.
and so I have five in personal lines, four in commercial lines. I have an office manager, I have a CFO, I have three producers, and then I have a lot of back end staff that I have in the Philippines. And
Okay.
that I'd say that's been valuable, extremely valuable. My staff in the Philippines, they are just kick ass. I
Mm.
mean, they really work hard. I mean, they've been with me 5 years, 4 years, from the get go, and they're part of the family. I just came back from the Philippines just about 2 weeks ago.
Really?
We had I mean, I go there 3 times a year. I treat them just like my employees here.
Yeah.
I mean, benefits, pay, everything, but they work very, very hard and they do a wonderful job for us.
Are you using a service, or did you
No,
find these on your?
I
Okay.
use Bob Klinger.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I go direct.
Nice. Now, what type of work, are these, are the people in the Philippines doing for you
Well,
out there?
I have some that are what I call as an ACSR. They're doing the quoting. They can do the endorsements. They can do a lot of the pre-fill stuff on the personal line side. On the commercial line side, they're doing some of the audit stuff, the correspondence. They're reaching out to clients 90 days prior to the renewal, getting updated information on sales, workers' comp payrolls. I have some they're doing my SEO,
Mhm.
my blogs. They're handling everything with my social media. I have
Okay.
some that help run my trade shows, setting up from start to finish. I have some that deal with all my traveling and my counter side. So they all do different things. And we're adding more. I mean, we're adding more because it's there.
Kudos to who's ever handling your social media, because as I've been following you, Your social media is excellent. It's very topical. It's consistent. They do a really good job of it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have two girls that do my Klinger Cares. It's a nonprofit that goes after, we do a lot of charity work and we do a lot within the community and we do a lot internationally.
mm,
We just came back from the Philippines and we donate money to a children's cancer clinic. These
mm,
kids are like from 1 to 13, they have cancer. And it's
yeah.
sad.
Okay.
And so we bought them medical supplies and fans and money and things that they truly needed. And I tell you, it's that's probably the most rewarding thing I could say after 30 years is being able to give back,
Yeah.
um, and never thinking that I'd be giving back internationally, and
Yeah.
it's been a blessing.
How are you spending most of your time?
Right now, it's I'm looking at 3, 6, 9, 12, looking at my 90-day rocks on the EOS, and
Mm,
we're a lot of planning ahead,
yeah.
looking at staff, looking at talent, looking at mergers, acquisitions. And it's just not only
Mm,
insurance we're managing. We have a finance company, we have a real estate company. So we're growing in different, segments. So I'm looking at the bigger picture of things.
Do you, with your, you have somewhat separate departments, personal, commercial benefits. Do you have leaders of all those
I
departments?
do. I do.
Yeah.
I have team leaders and I have managers throughout because there's no way I can deal with all those things. I mean, my day starts at about 4:30. I'm on the phone in the Philippines at 6 a.m. with my leadership team, and then at 8 o'clock, some of my managers are managing some of my staff here on different things,
Yeah.
and I run it pretty much like a military operation. Boom, 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 and they are really good. I mean, I feel very fortunate and blessed to have some amazing staff.
Yeah. It's everything.
Yeah,
It's everything. We can't go anywhere without, we're never going to scale and grow without a solid team behind us. Um, what do you find to be, the hardest parts of being a leader of this large team?
I think um, how do you motivate people? Because everybody's motivated differently. Some's pay, some's time off, some's praise. Understanding each people and finding the time to really get to know your staff. And I think that's the important thing there because you get locked into a bubble. If you see my office, I have a big command center where I have these big monitor screens where I track a lot of different things. But just like yesterday, we had our Christmas party, having team huddles or get togethers or community events where we can get together. And I think that's the most important thing is really understanding what's important to your staff.
Yeah.
I require all my staff to have a wide board or a vision board. And sometimes I'll walk through and we'll talk about that vision board. Hey, I know you want to go to that trip to Italy or Greece or where are we at? Have you booked the tickets? What's your plans? Or, you know, finding out what's important to them because that's the most important thing that matters. They need to. It's one thing to give them a task and a purpose, but they have to understand the why. But then they have to buy into that why, and they have to see, okay, if we do this, we grow. What's in it for me? And you've got to be able to do those things. So we try to find ways to do team building things, but we have what's called like the Klinger Wheel of Fortune, where if they get a Google review, they do something well, they can get Klinger crypto or Klinger bucks, and they can convert them into gift cards or time off, and have some fun with it. And so that's what I'm trying to do is how do we make it fun because this year's been stressful, especially in
Yeah.
the personal lines with the number of phone calls coming in. It's stressful for clients and it's stressful for our staff. And so I try to make them understand that, hey, the client stress, it's not to you, it's what they're going through. But we're just trying to be there to help them through this pain point.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 we can, and there's sometimes we can't. But I appreciate it. Don't take it to heart. And so it's a lot of coaching, mentoring. I make them read a lot of books. When I say make them, I give them opportunities to make more money by reading or listening to podcasts to better themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's important, that professional development. They have to be able to see a career path versus just being stagnant. I mean, we've been interviewing quite a bit this last year, and I cannot tell you how many people I've interviewed, their CSRs that felt they were stagnant, there was no growth. And I would ask them, okay, where do you want to be? Where is your vision? And I would be honest with them. Yeah, maybe that would align with us and maybe it wouldn't align with us.
Yeah.
But I think we've got better at hiring people in the last 2 or 3 years than I've ever done in 27 years because there's a certain culture of
Yeah.
people we're looking for. There's a certain thought process, and they either fit our system or they don't. And if they don't, we're not gonna try to put a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah. A couple thoughts on that. One, do you have somebody on your leadership team that's helping with that, kind of culture, and just taking the temperature of your team?
We do 90-day surveys of the staff getting to fill. We do have huddles, where look, no one has the. I want to understand. The greatest thing is when you hire people, they bring in different skill sets, different talents. They've seen what worked, what hasn't worked. And so that's important. So we do have, my managers are always looking at that, listen to that.
Yeah.
They're letting me know. And I look, if I did something wrong or there's a better way I could have handled something, I'm open to it. And they have that guidance and that freedom to be able to tell me that, because we're all human beings. Sometimes it's as Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And so we kind of need to understand where they're coming from, what's going on in their life, what's going on with their alphabet. I mean, it's very easy to shove off a bunch of leads, a bunch of things to them, but unless you have a system to track how much workload they're doing, you could be burning people out. And I would honestly tell you there were years probably where I did burn people out. But nowadays we have real time data that I can look and see everything they're working on, the number of accounts they're touching. So if I see their book is more service heavy or whatever, I can offset it by adding another person or shifting some of that over from one person to another to help them. And I think they appreciate that we do care and that we are listening.
100%. If you don't, that's easy to do, I think, is to overwhelm somebody because you just don't always know what's on their plate. Everything might seem okay. So a quarterly check-in we try to do. I mean, I'm trying to check in with my people at least on a monthly basis just to say, how's it going?
We have standard meetings Tuesdays and Thursday where all staff are online, and we go through a bunch of things. And at the end, I go around the table and say, what are you working on and what do you need help with?
Yeah.
And I make it very easy for them to say, hey, look, I don't know what you don't know, and I don't know how much you have at times. And if you need help, raise your hand. I don't want to see you with 20 new leads, but you can't get back to the person because then they're going to call and say, hey, no one ever got back to me. Share that love. And I encourage that crosstalk and between staff, because they know maybe today I'm overwhelmed, but maybe tomorrow Susie's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I encourage them to help each other, and that team is very important.
Yeah. The second thought I had on that was, which I love what you're doing, which is the development of your team. And I've hired a couple people in the last year, and that is a common thread of room to grow, develop, and to move within the company. And you want those people. How has your group bought into the personal development of reading books and expanding their professional
I'll give you an
knowledge?
example. Beginning of last year, we started with the EOS system, and I got 5 people in my leadership team, all the books. And then we would go through once a week, one chapter, and we would drill down. And then we start building things out. And it wasn't just me talking about it, it was their input too. It was looking at the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. The numbers are the numbers, and coming up with realistic goals. So you're looking at your 10-year, your 3-year, your 1-year, your 90-day rock. And then who's responsible for what thing. And they like that. And even prior to your call, I was on the call with them talking about our kickoff for the new year to go over the staff of where we need to be. And they understand it. They've had a lot of input in it, and they've learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
Because they got to see a corporate side of how things really happen. So now the next book we're on right now is Story Brand.
Okay.
And so we're going through that. because we're taking a look at our marketing and saying, hey, we're missing a lot of things. And so we're going through each chapter of story brand and having a brand consultant come in, taking a look at that there and working with them with it. And so they're excited because,
Yeah.
you could be making things or putting things on social media and you could think it's great, but if everybody else doesn't think it's great, it doesn't matter.
Right. Right. Yeah. Let's change gears a little bit on your perpetuation planning. When did you start into the perpetuation planning, and talk about how that evolved into just a really, really solid.
I mean, my first time it really hit me home was when I got deployed to Iraq. And I got a phone call saying I was being called back to active duty, and they said they're going to be gone within 2 weeks. And I said, how long? And they said it could be up to 2 years. And then I had to come home, and I told my wife at the time, my son was like 3 months old at the time, and that's a big shock. At the time, I didn't have a number of employees. You know what I'm saying? I think at the time I had maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And so I had to go through that. And then after going through the family, I had to go to the carriers and let them know that. And most of my carriers were real good. One carrier, which was funny, I was the number 1 agent of the DC metropolitan area in business with them. They first said, oh, okay. And then about 2 hours later, they called me back. And all of a sudden, they were talking like, maybe do you still need to be appointed with us? Maybe we should terminate our contract. And it got to be a really, they were more concerned about themselves, thinking that if I got killed, what would happen to their business and clients, which was very shameful.
Yeah.
I ended up having to go after them through USERRA, through the federal government, and they did a 360 after that because they found that they violated a lot of federal laws when it comes to military being deployed. And so that was a big setback there, really understanding how valuable are you to your company. We think insurance companies like to say we're partners, but are we truly partners? It's all about business. At the end of the day, they don't care. You could be a hero one year and go to zero the next. They don't care. So I had to build a plan real quick, and I put together a binder of a playbook real quick that it, God forbid, okay, who's going to help my wife do the bookkeeping? Who's going to pay the commissions? Who's going to track this? Who's going to do that? And I pretty much laid out everything I did or anybody did. And then I had to assign it to somebody. And then I had to sit down with that person to make sure it was easy and that they could do it. Because it wasn't like I could call in every day. I'm in the war. It may be once a week. It may be once a month. It may be different time zones. And so I had to have something in play. And by the grace of God, I did. I mean, I had it laid out. I had my will, my trust, my durable power of attorney. I had all that stuff laid out with my attorneys and all that there. And then I had some people in place that, to help my wife be able to run the agency, and a couple myself to help run the agency while I was gone. And between that, my accountant, my attorney, we were able to get through that. But there were a lot of lessons learned. I mean, I had one employee that kind of leveraged my wife at the time. If you don't pay me more money, I'm going to leave you. That type of situation. Wow. And that was pretty tough for her. And then one time, I remember after losing 2 guys, I called in one night and she's crying to me on the phone. And I was like devastated about everything went on. And I said to her at the time, I said, Karen, you just need to fire them. You need to let her go. Okay? Do not let her hold you hostage.
Yeah.
Even though it hurts, let her go and move on. Wow. And that's a tough situation to say.
Yeah.
But it lets you know when you're not there, who's really on your team.
Yeah.
Is the insurance carrier really a partner of yours? Are they going to work with you and help you? Or are they going to go south on you? Is your employees going to be faithful to you? Are they going to step up? Or are they going to try to figure out how they can take advantage of a bad situation? I mean, I had insurance agents call my clients and say, hey, I heard Bob Klinger got killed. You may want to move your insurance. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, so you had to deal with that. So that was my first impression. When I got back, I learned a lot. And then I put together a major playbook now that I was talking about innovation that really goes into the details of it because, we take a lot for granted as a president, as the owner. You're doing a lot of things. And even though you're delegating, if something happens to you and you're out of the picture forever, what's that going to look like? Do you have somebody in line that's willing to help do your evaluation of your book? Have you did business evaluations? Do Do you have some people in mind that may want to buy your agency? You need to really spell those things out and look at them deeply. I mean, just listing of all your bank accounts, all your passcodes, all the things that you take for granted. You've got to download everything in your mind and put it on paper and make it where someone has access to it, and maybe multiple people have access
Yeah.
to it. And that's very, very important. And that needs to be updated every year because things change.
Yeah.
And we never take it. We always take it for granted until someone passes away. Then you say, "Oh, I think I need to do that." Or how many times do you hear another insurance agency passed away, and you wonder what happened to their book of business? How it dwindles, or the people don't get the right, amount of money what they should have got if they did a proper valuation, if they put some things in place ahead of time. And that's important. If you look at your contracts, what does it say within your carrier contracts if you pass away? What if you don't have a spouse or a son that could step in and you're the only one that was signed on that carrier contract? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It spoke so loudly to me because during your presentation, I was thinking, what happens if I'm not here and my wife has to come in to my office,
Sure.
and all of a sudden take over, or my brother. So I have some of those. What I thought were sort of the bigger plans. I have an evaluation done. I have a written plan on who to contact and what goes from there. But in terms of one of the things that I learned was your carrier contracts, and to your point of what happens, to have somebody that's going to communicate, this is the plan that's in place. So hold on, I mean, you don't go crazy. There is a plan. Who's going to be in charge of what? Who handles the administration of things in the office? What's going to happen to my producer contracts? What needs to
Sure.
be communicated to them? What's going to happen from here? All that has to be spelled out. And that, before your presentation, was not.
Yeah.
Because
It's not
there's,
like that. You have to think about what is the message to your actual clients.
yeah,
Because what happens when the clients find out, or they read an obituary that you passed away or something happened?
yeah,
What does that look like? So you need to be proactive on that one too,
yeah,
letting them know that there's still, the same people are servicing are still in place. The same things are there. You need to be able to spell that out too.
for sure. For sure. I mean, that's how important is that with the potential of the, eventual sale,
Yeah.
or
I mean,
transition,
it's
whatever it
not, and
is.
all your vendor contracts and everything else
Yeah.
can go straight down the line.
Yeah. So yeah, your playbook was really, it was really well done. So I appreciate it so much for sharing. Um, let's touch on a little bit of how your business ran when you were deployed. It sounds like your wife, just kind of came in or just
And
took
between
everything over.
between her, my bookkeeper, my CPA, and a couple other people, we actually did quite well.
Yeah.
My retention actually was even better because my clients understood. I think they looked at me and they looked at my family a little bit more higher of a respect, giving of a service. This came right after 9/11.
Yeah.
So people at that time were more patriotic. Didn't matter what side of the aisle you were on. People were kind of on the same Team America. And so it was a different time at that point.
Yeah.
And it taught my family a lot. It taught me a lot. I think it made us stronger in a lot of ways, but it also you know, unraveled some of the weaknesses we had too that we
Right.
need to improve on as well.
Right. Well, because you were the main person, right? I mean, that
That's right.
that held most of those answers. So I bet, and hats off to your wife. It sounds like she absolutely killed it while you were absent, and
I mean,
probably,
she had a lot on her plate because, like I said, between that and my son at the time was born, it was 6 months, and then
wow.
I was gone. It was a lot. I had to bring in a nanny, help raise my son at the time. So there was a lot of moving parts that need to be taken care of because you don't. I mean, who's gonna raise your child? Who's gonna help take care of So there's a lot of things that moved into it, and again, we did the best we could at that time, and we learned a lot through it. And we had some great support with our carers. We had some very caring clients that were very supportive. You don't need to come out and see me about my renewal. I understand it went up, not a problem. how's Bob doing? How's the family doing? It took the transaction away to a more of a personal touch type situation. And that was really nice.
Yeah. How long were you deployed?
I was supposed to be employed up to 2 years. This time I was only about 16 months before. It
Okay.
was the day after the first Iraqi election. It's a date I'll never forget. Where we were, I was in charge of a TCRIT at the time, and I had the most successful Iraqi election ever in my area of operation. They tried to blow it up and derail it many times, and we were able to stop it and make it go really well. And that was something there because in America, we take elections for granted. We
Yeah.
just really, when you get to see and be a part of the first ever election in a country, which in Iraq it
Mm.
was pretty neat, but pretty sad. And one day I'll finalize a book on the whole thing.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of politics and everything
Yeah.
that goes into that. But the next day we were told that they were going to try to derail that final election and on a counterattack. And at that point, we got some orders to go out into a village in the middle of the night, and we were doing a raid, and they start blowing up all the buildings around us.
Mm.
And that kind of set me on a helicopter life flighting over to Landstuhl, Germany.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your service. I am grateful. And that's it's just the utmost respect for what you've endured. Let's we're a little short on time here. Let's pivot to what would you like to see the Klinger Insurance Group improve on in 2024?
There's a lot, and we're going through that now. We're doing what's called our AAR of the year, our after action review, taking a look at personal, commercial, benefits, life, health, social media. And so there's a big punch list of things we're doing. One of the things I mentioned on a previous podcast is that, I like to go to a lot of these trade shows and things like that. But I did say I'm going to cut back on some of the trade shows this year, not the number of trade shows. If I go to 9, there may be
Mm.
only 3 industry wide, but there'll be 6 outside the industry
Okay.
because there's a lot of things I want to learn, and I want to learn through different markets. When I was in Thailand this year, I went to the real marketing one, which was open up my line. As you know, when I was out there 2 weeks ago, I went to this 2-day event on marketing and social media and paid per click and just ads and things like that. And it was the who's who of there, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Mm.
And I got to really meet a lot of people that if I did not go, that I would not have access to these people now to share ideas or to hire. And that's why I'm looking to go to different events so I can pull in a different sphere of centers of influence.
Yeah. What would you say drives Bob Klinger?
I love what I do. I love what I do, and I love my clients. And when you love what you do, and I've never had to look at the clock and say, "Hey, when's it time to go home?" Yeah, it's never been that way with me. And I always want to get better, and I want to give our clients a better and better experience. And I think that's the most important thing there. And I love being able to give back to our community and the things we care about most. And this industry has blessed me enough to be able to give money back or time or resources or whatever to a lot of different causes that we care about.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's great. You're doing amazing things. I want to thank you again for joining me today. We've gotten a lot out of this. Everyone else, thank you for listening to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you again. God bless.